Hello, everyone. Just gonna go live now. Let's go live, everybody. Okay, hello everybody. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Okay, hello everybody. Oh, okay, there you go. I was trying to go live on Facebook and on Instagram, so sometimes it takes time. I both have to go. Everyone, hello. Welcome to this amazing new program that we are starting today. Welcome, Marla. It's so nice to see you. Добрый вечер, Tatiana. Hello. Hi, Sudha. I see you on Insta. So that's so nice to see all of you. People I know, some people I don't know, but welcome. Lana, so nice to see you. Welcome. So we are here today. We're starting a new amazing new program that's called Ho'oponopono Transformational Program. And we're doing an amazing integration, amazing fusion with the Neurographic Method. Today, on Mondays, we will be, hello, Ray, hi. On Mondays, we will be having open sessions where I will give you majority of information about the deep, advanced Ho'oponopono knowledge, the background information, everything, why and how it works. And on other days, this week, I believe it will be Wednesday and Friday, we will actually be doing more Neurographic drawing. We will actually draw today as well. I am excited to bring you some drawing today in the open session. You will get to see that. At the end of the session, we will get to do some fusion of Neurographica, but mostly today it will be the discussion, the understanding, the explanation on the background information on how Ho'oponopono works, why it works. I want to tell you that most of the explanation that I will be giving you is not in open books, is not in open sessions. I personally took an advanced Ho'oponopono sessions, actually 2 courses I took, not just one, but 2 transformational courses I took with Joe Vitale and Dr. Shalom. I will be discussing them, explaining a lot about them. So here, welcome, hello, so nice to see you. I will be explaining about them today in the session. But just so you know, there is a lot of explanation. There is a lot of deeper knowledge going beyond the books, okay? And when I learned this about 2 years ago in 2019, I was so excited. I was quite interested to find out that, whoa, this program goes much more beyond. I mean, the Ho'oponopono itself is quite magical and transformational as it is, right? Just for those of you who are just tuning in to understand, Ho'oponopono is this ancient Hawaiian art of problem solving. Translated from the Hawaiian language, the word actual Ho'oponopono means to correct a mistake or to do something right, okay? So Ho'oponopono, the practice of Ho'oponopono, helps to remove, to neutralize, to erase destructive programs in order to become one with the divine consciousness that is inherent in every person, to merge with the flow of abundance, to receive inspiration. And that is what it's all about. So just to say hello again, my open sessions on Mondays will be, it's 3 Mondays, including today and the next 2 weeks. Mondays, I will be going open here on Facebook and here on Instagram, wherever you see me. There will be a 4th session. I am figuring this out now, how brave I am to go open with it or not. Probably will go open. It will be, the 4th session will be a very special session. It will be a Ho'oponopono with labyrinth, a triple integrative practice where we're going to integrate the practice of Ho'oponopono, of labyrinths, and of Neurographica as well. Michelle, hello, so nice to see you, dear. Welcome, welcome. Yes, so interesting to note, right? So that let's start with the Ho'oponopono. I have so much to give you. I have so much information I want to share with you today. When I designed the course, I was trying to figure out, do I need 3 sessions? Do I need 4 sessions? I realized I do need, I'm going to try to fit things in within the 3 sessions, but it will take some efforts on my behalf. You on your behalf, welcome to participate by asking questions. Hello, Anna, welcome. So nice to see you here. Welcome to ask questions in the chat. Sometimes I'm not going to be able to see it right away, but I will see it and I will react to it. Ask questions. If for some reason, sometimes the chat runs away, I want to see your question, just repeat it again, please. I will be happy to answer. This knowledge is so interesting. So I was saying that I took the 2 courses with Dr. Joe Vitale, and of course the courses were together with Dr. Hulan. Hello, beautiful Rain. And the information was so fundamental. The information was so, I would say integrative and resourceful to fully understand the method, that I went beyond, I went much more beyond than going just the 4, saying just the 4 phrases. I actually adapted it and created my own coaching system that uses the Ho'oponopono method and actually goes beyond, brings the resources. And that's what I am bringing to you here, how to bring out the important resources within, right? How do you use Ho'oponopono to not just go through the day, so to say, but actually start looking for resources, bring it in within your life and start integrating them, okay? So I am going to do this. This is, for those of you on Facebook, you will get the advantage of being able to see my shared screen. For those of you on Instagram, not so much, right? Because Instagram doesn't allow that feature, right? And I can't go with Zoom on Instagram. But I will be telling you about what I am showing people, and I'm sure you'll get it, okay? I will be drawing a lot. I will be writing a lot. So let's start, okay? The amazing session, the Ho'oponopono amazing sessions. Here we are, okay? The Ho'oponopono is the basic idea about the Ho'oponopono, just for you guys to get the basic idea, the basic understanding, is saying the 4 phrases, okay? The 4 major phrases are, thank you, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Very basic, very simple. I would say as simple as it gets. You really don't need any complicated information, any complicated knowledge, just simple 4 phrases. You say them at any time. You can say them when you really need it, like, if you have something happening in your life, you can say them just throughout the day. That's my practice. My integrated practice is saying them throughout the day. I say them when I wake up, like a mantra, kind of, getting resources for the day ahead. I say them at the end as a good night, as a, before going to sleep. So it's an amazing, amazing, it's very simple. You can just say the phrases. This is like just an intro, okay? For those of you who wants to go much more beyond, for those of you, especially those of you who are coaches, psychologists, future instructors in Neurographica, right? And Neurographica practitioners, you may want to see this. You may want to start utilizing, taking what I'm teaching and actually start utilizing as an amazing coaching tool within your own professional practice, okay? So that's an amazing way to go beyond, okay? Let's start, okay? The first thing I want to bring to you is this interesting kind of comics cartoon that, is this the order you said? Yes, everything is recorded. It's recorded on my, let me check. Yes, it is. It's recording on my Zoom, so it will be in your private group, Ilona, absolutely. Yes, Ilona, there is a reason I'm saying it in this order. I will mention why. I will explain why. When I learned it, the way Joe Vitale teaches it, and it's true, you can say it in any order you want to, but the way I designed is that it should go in this order, and I'll explain why later on. So there is this cartoon that you guys see on your screen. For those on, wondering if I can show, no, I can't show the screen. So for those of you guys on Instagram, the cartoon shows, a person standing by the, in like a bookstore, by the place that says self-help, right? And there's one person by the bookcase that says self-help, books on self-help. And then there is another case, a bookcase, right? Or an aisle in the bookstore that says fixing others. And about 10 people are standing there. So the premise of this cartoon is that we often get so focused on helping others, fixing others, trying to bring help or assistance to others, that we tend to forget that the major part of who we are in this world is actually self-help, is working with ourselves, is going through our own transformational practice. Working and helping others is actually like a part of working with yourself, just FYI, right? So this will be 4 major ideas that we'll be dwelling with today. Who am I? Okay, most people don't know who they truly are. They actually go through life based on other people's ideas, other egregors, cultures, communities, others' ideas, thoughts, and confirmations, right? The second, we're going to discuss what is the problem. What is going on here, right? There's a lot of confusion on what is the source of the problem, right? And when we say problem, is what's happening when there's, something occurring within our life. What's the reason for that? Is there a background information? Is there a reason why this is happening? That's what we're going to discuss. The third premises is, what is the problem itself? And I'm going to repeat to you a lot of things that I'm going to tell you will come from Dr. Hulen, one of the main teachers of the Ho'oponopono method. I will discuss him later in details, but he says that have you ever noticed that every time there is a problem, you're there? He's like, and it's like, some people start thinking, oh, is there a problem with me? But it's more of understanding that, there is a certain responsibility that we have upon ourselves, and it's more of a karmic, right? We're going to discuss a lot of karmic ability, karmic responsibility. And of course, the fourth very important part of our course will be, how can the problem be solved? How do we solve it? And can we actually figure out what the problem is so we can actually fully solve it? And this is a basic understanding of how we're going to work, okay? I want to explain to you, so I will be, for those of you on Facebook, I'll be turning on and off our sharing, okay, just for you guys. And that means I will be going on and off to guys see you in live. Okay, excellent. I want to make sure I see your questions, I see your everything you're telling me, okay? So let's start from the very, very beginning. Let's go way back. Let's go way back to ourselves, okay? Like I mentioned, this course is about ourselves. This course is about what are we doing? How are we working with ourselves? Who are we? And I want to go to the very beginning, to the source of it all, right? The birthing. When we come to this world, right, when our soul, right, according to many explanations, our soul comes into the, you know, when we are still in the uterus, when we're still, our mother is pregnant with us, right? So our soul comes in within a pure state, completely pure state, right? It's completely blank. There is a purity state of soul when we are in the womb, right? And especially when we are born, okay? Let's discuss, we're not even gonna go into the growth ideas of the prenatal. It's kind of, in this case, it's not as relevant, right? In this specific course. Let's discuss the fact that when a person is born, the person is born in a completely pure state of the soul, of the mind, of everything, right? And the person comes into the world, and the world is actually the state, the current state of the world is chaos, is disease, there's problems, there's suffering, right? So when we come into the world, our soul that is completely pure, that is completely clean of any residue, of any karmic baggage, any karmic program, and the very first thing we do, we cry, and then we start feeling this connection. The very first person we start feeling the connection to is, of course, the mother figure, the person who was connected to us for 9 months, and the person who gave birth to us. That's the person who we feel the most, 1 second, let me just, okay, so I can see your question. The most connected to, the most associated with. And when the newborn comes to this world, because of this very pure state, the newborn is extremely sensitive, sensorically receptive to any messages he or she receives from this person who is the most, the closest at this moment. Again, for the beginning, it's a mother figure, right? The father figure actually comes later in life, but sometimes, and we know that whenever the outside world starts giving some kind of worrisome or anxious thought about anything in life, the child starts being receptive to this thought, start bringing it into their own kind of aura, into their own life, and starts reacting to it, okay? Let's say what happens with a newborn, right? The newborn starts crying. What does the mother go to? The mother who has her own life, right? Who goes through this birth process, right? Who undergoes extreme psychological, physical, emotional, mental, anything you may want to think of, the mother undergoes through that, all of those processes when she gives birth to the child. So of course, she's also super receptive, super sensitive. And when she hears the newborn baby cry, her mind kind of gets into this state of like anxiety and worrisome, and start thinking, what's happening? Is the baby hungry? Is the baby cold? Is he sleepy? Do I need to feed him? Do I need to change him or her? This kind of anxiety, this kind of, you know, mixing, like not fully understanding what the child that fully depends on her, on the mother needs, gives this sense of also like anxiety to the child. What happens to the child at this moment is that the child receives this messages that something is off. I am confused. I am not sure. I am worried. And as a result, the child receives, that triggers the karmic associations from the previous lifetimes, okay? As soon as the child gets a message from the environment that something is off, there is some worry, there is not enough resources in the environment to answer the child's messages or needs or wishes, the child starts associating, starts connecting that to their own karmic kind of baggage, kind of memory from previous lifetimes, okay? This karmic association paired with the present life experience gets layered within a complex human system that we call the memory, right? What is the memory? The memory actually stores all of our experiences with the karmic association, with the time, you know, and whatever the thought is, whatever that child felt at the moment. And it's layers, layer by layer, right? It gets very easily filled up. With time, the layers actually get heavy and get so multi-leveled that it's quite impossible to bring it up, right? It's quite impossible for most of the people to actually remember what they did before the age of 3 or 4, right? Some people remember something at the age of 2, but most of the time, it doesn't go be below that age because it's almost impossible. It's, you know, on the conscious level, it's extremely hard. It's almost impossible to, 1 second, sometimes my Facebook gets frozen and then I have to restart it so I can see if you have any questions or anything. Those kind of memories, you know, get submerged into our subconscious first and then fully becomes a part of our unconscious, and we cannot easily access it only through the use of certain methods such as hypnosis, right? Through Neurographica, sometimes we can access it. I just started using the labyrinths for the last few months. I've been practicing. It's also an amazing way to start accessing your unconscious, full unconscious. But again, we will never get full access to our childhood memories or even memories as a newborn because it's impossible, right? It becomes layered in. So here's an interesting part to understand that, right? Let me show you guys 1 second. Okay, for those of you on Instagram, I'm just gonna draw. It's just some understanding. Okay, you see a circle, and then there's a letter M within it. Okay, that's our memory. This is our memory. Our memory is stuck within our, most of the time, again, the childhood memory, the beginning of it all, it's stuck within our unconscious, it's stuck within our subconscious, and most of the time we have no access to it. We don't fully understand how to access it. Now, I also want to show you a different understanding, right? Now, how does a human being function in the world altogether, right? We have something that we call, those of you in Neurographic may actually recognize this. We actually learned this at the basics course, right? But this works within all and any practices, right? We have something we call the present, the future, and the past. Okay, so metaphorically and allegorically speaking, pay attention to the sizes of the circles, right? This is the snowman figure, right? Our future is on the very top, our present is the middle circle, and our past is the biggest circle on the bottom. Interesting to note, right? Our past is the biggest. It's very heavy, it's big, it drags us down, kind of, it keeps us rounded and grounded, right? Our present is in the middle, right? In order to get from the past to the future, we need to pass through the middle. And our future is on top, it's the smallest circle. But notice when I was looking for the image to bring you, I specifically chose this image. Look at this circle on top. It has a smile, right? It has some kind of recognition like eyes and nose. This is where we are constantly trying to go, okay? Our constant kind of striving, when we live in our life, we constantly strive to go to the very top. That's our goal in life. Look at our hands. Even the hands in the snowman show you that it's, those of you in Instagram, right? Let me draw it for you. Even the hands are going up, right? The hands are kind of aimed, goal to go up, to go to the future. Our whole life, we are striving, we rarely live in our present, okay? It's a very fleeting, the present is very fleeting. We constantly tend to go forward into the future where we have our fantasies, our dreams, right? We constantly think, oh, when I will get this amount of money, I will start doing this and that. When I will, become a millionaire, I will start looking and buying a house. When I will go on a vacation, I will start being more happy, more content. We constantly try to, we flee to the future. Or we often go to the past. The past is huge. Look at the bottom, right? We constantly get stuck in the past, right? We start saying my boss was rude to me, which inevitably may lead to the memories of my mother, my father, or my kindergarten teacher being rude to me once in my childhood, or twice or three times, right? And this may be conscious or even subconscious association to the childhood. So the human being rarely lives in the present, but rather constantly slips either to the future or to the past, right? Now, we all know that most of you, I think, know, but I will show you this diagram. Second. Wait a second, everyone. Okay. Yeah. Okay, now I see your comments. I don't know if you see it. Yeah, Lana, it's an amazing, amazing way to show the basic idea of how we live our life, right? So let's get to the next diagram, right? Most of you are familiar with this diagram for Instagram. I'm just going to draw it for you guys. Just give me a second. This is a process, those of you viewing it, okay? So we have the spiritual world, the mental. So I'm going to show you the diagram of the physical world, right? Of the four worlds, the four circles. Most of you, again, are familiar with it. Most of the integrated practices, religions and methods, everybody uses the four circle, which is a reference to the four worlds, right? The very basic world we live in is the bottom world, right here on the bottom. We also have an emotional world. We have the mental world. The emotional world is where we, where we access our emotions. The mental world is where we access our mind, our thoughts. And we have the very top world, the spiritual world, right? So we basically live in the physical world, right? We actually, on Wednesday, I will have an open session at 12 p.m. EST on the pyramid of consciousness. We actually discuss this again, going fleeting, from one level to another. But at this point, just to show you that yet consciously, we all live within the physical world. Yet consciously, our goal is always to get to the top world, okay? Our goal in this world, most of the people, almost everybody, right, always try to go from being in the physical level straight forward to the very top. Okay, we don't want to, our goal, our, striving, we try to go to the spiritual. What is a spiritual world? By the way, for those of you, it doesn't only mean that we want to be spiritual, right? There are people who are very grounded, very earthy, right? For them, it means that the main goal in life is always on top, whether it's building a career, reaching materialistic heights. Our tendency is to jump to the top. We want to jump. We constantly want to be here, right? And that's the goal, right? That's a human goal, how to make our wishes, our desires become constantly, instantly realized, right? So it's interesting to note, I use this model in Kesef, right? That our tendency is constantly jump to the top, live within our wishes, desires. I want to do this. When I will get this, I will get to the next step. You constantly plan for the future, and you kind of live in the future, right? When I say you, I mean in general, and the interesting part to know is that after going to the very top, we have something in the physical world we call the gravity, right? The gravity is what pulls us down constantly. So what happens in our world, we constantly travel from one part to another. Let me actually, 1 second. Those of you on Facebook, so I want you to be able to see this also. We constantly travel from the physical world to the top, we live within our wishes, within our desire, and then the gravity pulls us back and we come back to the bottom again. Okay, there's this constant movement throughout life. So what's happening? What is happening over here? The thing is that it's impossible for us, no matter how much a human being strives, it's impossible for us to jump, to instantly go from being in the physical world to the spiritual, to the top world, where all our desires and wishes instantly gratified, instantly fulfilled. So what happens? Why? Because when we go up, we always go through the middle worlds. Okay, we always go through the middle. We must pass through the emotional world and through the mental world. And guess what? These two worlds is where we actually get stuck. Okay, we get stuck on a mental world. We tend to overanalyze everything. We get stuck on the emotional level. We tend to start feeling everything, reacting to everything in our life in a very emotional way. Everything in our life, goes through the senses, right? That's how we see the world. We see with our eyes, we hear with our ears, we touch with our hands, right? We smell with our nose and we taste with our mouth. We talk with our mouth, we express ourselves with our mouth. And often we get stuck within the five senses and we barely are able to go to the very top, okay? This is important to remember. So what do we do? How do we start understanding what is the solution? Is the solution to learn how to jump? Because it's almost impossible. It's some people do it, right? There are some people, we're going to discuss this, in some practices you kind of learn, but the issue remains. Even when people go to like Vipassana, silent retreats, start doing meditations, they do make this top world more accessible to themselves. And I meet people like that. I know people like that. I went through that myself, that, you go to Vipassana, you go to the silent retreat, and you come back, you become highly enlightened. You get in touch with yourself, with your absolute self, right? With your soul. And then you come back to reality and it becomes a challenge. It becomes kind of harder because when you come back to reality, guess what? You still have to deal with these two worlds, because this is what human life, the physical world, is all about. We need to deal with other people. We need to take care of our family, we need to deal with our loved ones, significant ones, the spouse, with our partners in life. We need to deal with our people at work, right? Business. We need to make money. We need to pay for, food and shelter that we need to have in order to be safe. So we can't avoid these two worlds. We need to be able to understand, how do we get through this? Okay. So it's interesting to understand, just for you guys, that this idea of instant realization of going from the physical world to the spiritual right away was at one point a reality. Okay, if we go to the biblical story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, right, in Gan Eden, in the paradise, what is the story there? The story there is that's exactly what happened there. Whenever Adam and Eve would think of something, whatever their desire, their wish was, they would actually think about it, right? They would be emotionally involved, right? They were still humans, right? They still access all the four worlds, right? They would get emotion. They would say, I want to taste, strawberries. And the strawberry and the physical world around them would instantly, 1 second, I don't see Facebook. The physical world around them would instantly react to, to what they need. And let's say the strawberries at that moment would grow, right? So what happened is when they ate from the tree of knowledge, okay, Lana, I just saw your comment. I'm going to discuss it now, actually. That's exactly what I will be discussing. What happened is when Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, what they started bringing, they brought doubt, they brought hesitation, they brought something we call overanalyzing. We tend to overanalyze everything. We tend to overthink things in life, right? If we want to do something, we start thinking, do I want to? Will I be good enough? We bring a lot of mental processing, right? Again, going over here, mental processing happens a lot within our physical world. And we get constantly stuck, right? We get constantly stuck either worrying about things, which is emotional, or over analyzing and thinking, will it happen, will it not? Will it be the perfect state, this perfection image that I have in my mind, right? Let's say if I open up a business, will it be successful, right? Right away we start thinking, will it be very successful? Will I be extremely rich? Will I be extremely happy? Will I, become popular? Will I get access to, will people start following me? This trend with social media nowadays, right? And this is the mental stuff, right? So what happens is interesting to know that in reality, we get so preoccupied with these two worlds, we rarely reach the top world, right? Which is where we want to be, which is what our goal is. Yeah. So Ilona, to answer your question, right? There is the consequence, there is the necessity to go on a retreat, to do silent meditations. I love doing them myself. I myself am a spiritual person. I can easily, I'll be honest with you, if I think it would be, if I would be a man, I was thinking, I would probably just kind of retreat and become the spiritual guru. Hi, Gigi, so nice to see you, sweetie. The spiritual guru who just sits and learns, if I would be like, in Judaism, we have something like where people go into yeshiva, right, into a spiritual seminary, and all they do is learn Torah, learn the Bible, the commentaries, and that's all they do, right? That's something I feel very close to, but we have to keep in mind that we are physical beings. We are in this reality called life, and we need to learn to understand that on a realistic level, what I mentioned before, it's so hard after the retreat. You have to learn to come back because, yes, you do see things in a different way, in a different light. But you have to learn how to access people, people with their shortcomings, people with their memories, people with their emotional baggage and mental baggage. Because remember, what happens around us is the world around us is what we're reflecting. We're actually going to talk about it soon, right? Because when we start reacting to other people's emotions, thoughts, words, right? What we are doing is we're actually bringing association from our karmic history, from our karmic memory, and we start, acting and reacting. Okay. And that's kind of hard. So we need to learn how to take that enlightenment feeling that we got from retreats, meditations, and start kind of bringing it to maybe a realistic level, start kind of seeing and understanding, when something happened in life, right? When we pass on the street and somebody passes by and accidentally hits us, right? Kind of butts our shoulder, right? Do we turn around and say, hey, what are you doing? Why are you pushing me, right? Or do we start thinking, most of the time we start reacting, right? We start saying, hey, why did that person hit me? Why does this always happen to me? Somebody constantly hits me, somebody constantly pushes me. The person gets involved in the present reactions of life. The way we're supposed to react is supposed to kind of have a kind of a conversation, which is, main idea from this course. We're going to learn how to have a conversation with ourselves and say, I wonder what was that all about within the karmic, understanding, within the karmic history of itself. Was this maybe in previous lifetime with this person, I kind of maybe pushed that person. So we kind of came back together, our souls came back within the body system, that we kind of, she kind of, or he kind of had to push me back. And this way the karmic baggage would be balanced, right? This is just a simple idea, simple understanding at this level. We actually are going to go more into it, right? We're going to go. My point is not that you shouldn't go on a spiritual retreat. You should. My point is how to balance it out, how to bring yourself down to the earthly grounding level and being able to start reacting, start acting, and start being, leading a productive life where you are balance on all levels, on all worlds, where you balance in the physical sense, where you're open to receiving money, to sharing, receiving love, right, on an emotional and mental. And of course, that will lead us to the spiritual level. Okay. So I want to, at this point, I want to show you, I want to bring you to the story that most of you know, about Ho'oponopono, right? What is Ho'oponopono? Ho'oponopono was originally, one second, right? This person's name is Dr. Hulen. That's short for Ihialakala Hulen. Dr. Hulen is a psychiatrist who learned excuse me, I just needed to take a drink. Dr. Hulen is a psychiatrist who learned the ancient secret Hawaiian method. I'm going to tell you the whole story about him very soon. I want to go further. He actually learned the Hawaiian method from this woman. This woman's name is Morna Nalamaku Simeona. Morna Simeona is a healer, was a healer who came from a whole line of healers within her ancestry line, right? Her mother was a healer, her grandmother, right? She comes from the line of healers within the her Hawaiian, tribe, her Hawaiian family. So interesting to note, right? So there was in the islands of Hawaii, we know the islands of Hawaii are specifically, it's important to know that it's an island, they're kind of removed from the rest of the world. They're not a part of it. And in the island of Hawaii, right, in historically, anthropologically speaking, people lived in tribes. And there was an interesting practice. Whenever something happened within the tribe, people would fight. There was a fight, whether it was a physical fight or, even a fight between families. What the leader of the tribe, right, the shaman, the leader, would bring the two families together. They would actually sit across from each other, and they would say certain words to each other that would help them kind of bridge, that would help them heal or would help them solve whatever the argument they would have. And on many different levels, the families at a certain point, they would sit and do this practice until they get to the point where they would, not be mad at each other anymore. They would be okay, be content, maybe even be happy with each other, right? They would get to the level of kind of coexisting within the tribe, within a productive, again, what our goal is, a productive life, right? So again, all of this would happen on the tribal level. When Morna became the kahuna is the leader of her generational, right, of like this healing board, I don't know if I can call it the board, but kind of the word I was looking for, kind of that for that generation. I want to tell this happened in like 70s, 80s, maybe. Maybe even 60s, but I believe it was more 70s, 80s, right? She started saying something revolutionary, right? She brought this notion, she brought this idea that, and I want to mention that this method was very hidden. Only the shamans would learn the secrets of the method. And then again, the healers, the shamans would learn, and they would pass it from one leader to another, from generation to generation. And it would stay within the circle of the tribes, within the circle of the Hawaiian, kind of healers, right? It wasn't something that people would bring to the outside. It wasn't something people even knew, people who are not of Hawaiian background, right? So what Morna said, she came at one point and she said, the world is changing around us. There is something we call technology. There is something we call, mingling, intermixing, people of Hawaiian ancestry, of Hawaiian background, intermarry, so to say, right? They start becoming mixed in with other cultures, with other nationalities, other culture, other people from different background. And she said, it's impossible to keep it. There are no tribes. So when people do get mad at each other, they end up staying mad. And that kind of adds to the constant chaos and turmoil that the world is experiencing on a daily basis. And she says, we need to change the way we bring this method to our people. We need to start sharing it with the world because our people are dispersed through the world, right? It's interesting to note. So she started teaching this technique, this method openly to everybody, right? She started giving sessions, started giving courses, and she started saying that everybody come and learn. Okay, I want to mention she was actually heavily ostracized for that. She was like, I think they kicked her out of some kind of association, their own like tribal, shamanic association. But like with many, revolutionary progressive ideas, this method has prevailed. It became something very universal. It's something that everybody around the world know as, everybody call it Ho'oponopono, right? We know it as something we call Ho'oponopono. Interesting to notice, right, that with this practice, each word, each letter has a significance, it has meaning, and even each letter in Hawaiian is very meaningful. I want to tell you, as somebody who studies the Bible on a very detailed level, right? That's not something I do openly, that's something my personal practice, right? I want to notice, like I studied the Bible in actually original Hebrew, the Torah, the Hebrew, the Jewish Bible, right? And it's interesting to know that over there, also each word, each letter has many diverse meanings, have very various understanding, and you will see a lot of allegories, right? The word ho in the word Ho'oponopono actually means peace. Like the word salam in Arabic, right? The word shalom in Hebrew, right? Which means peace, right? It's something in the Arabic, in the Semitic world, right? Some Semites are people who are Jewish, who are Arabic, right? Muslims, right? We use the word shalom or salam to say anything. We could say hello with shalom. We say goodbye with salam, right? We mean peace. It's this general understanding. It's like similar to, I don't know if there's an equivalent in any other language, like English, Russian. There is no equivalent, but it's important to understand that this is a universal way of greeting when we say hello and when you wish a peace upon a person in front of you. And the second part of the word, pono, means to reach completion, to complete, to become full. And it's an allegory. Those of you in Neurographica, what is this an allegory to? I think you know the answer. I'm going to actually switch back. There you go. This is an allegory to the circle, of course. The element, the symbol of the circle that we have in Neurographica is also about completion, to become full, perfection, right? It's something we call the perfection. 1 second, everybody. I just need to close the door. No, I don't know. My husband told him that I will be working, but I won't be able to tell you. Ask at the office, please. Sorry, everybody. Somebody was knocking on my door. I had to answer it. So let's go further, right? Dr. Hulen, right? We spoke about him. Dr. Hulen becomes the student of Mourner, right? He actually tells the story about how he becomes a student. He tells the story how he's a psychiatry student, right? He's in medical school. He's becoming a psychiatrist, right? He went through medical school. He's actually in the psychiatry medical part. There's an additional part that those of you who understand know what I'm talking about. It's going beyond just becoming a doctor. You have to actually take psychiatry is one of the longest programs. You have to actually learn, I think, 4 more years to become a psychiatrist. So he's this busy psychiatric student, right, who's learning. And somebody tells him, you should really check this out. This is really awesome, And he comes into the class and he says the story of how the class was expensive, right? Mourner's course was expensive. And he comes, he pays this money. He doesn't have much money. He's a student. He's like, okay, I heard so many good things. I'm going to try. He comes in and she starts telling him and all the students, look around you, look on the world, look at the ceiling, look at the world around you. Do you see anything? You should be starting to sense something, She started going into very spiritual, heavy language, She starts saying, you should start feeling some creatures, maybe you have some feeling. And he's listening. He said, I listened for I think up to half an hour. And then I said, what a bunch of nonsense. What a bunch of nonsense. And he just left. And he says there was no refund, nothing. So he's like, and then as he started to actually became a psychiatrist, he started working with people. he himself being a very highly spiritual, himself being more of an introvert kind of person, right? Who easily accesses, who's a very heavy empath, right? He started saying that when he started working with clients, he started feeling this heaviness within him, and he realized, again, it brought him, his path came to Morna's course again, and he said, I paid the money again, and I went, and this time things became more clear to me. I was more ready to understand. As I started working with clients, I started understanding that the medical understanding, right, of most psychological illnesses are not what what we see, are not what we understand. It's much more beyond, right? It's actually something that we can fully understand on the 4 worlds level, right? Most of the time, it's actually, there you go, the answer to your question, Ilona. I'm not saying that people would do that, but most of the time, the psychological kind of explanation, right, of people, psychological illnesses that people experience, God forbid to anybody, schizophrenic, multiple personalities, actually for people who are jumping, I'm not saying, again, this will happen, but it may this is a way when people are trying to change their state of reality, from going from the physical world straight into the spiritual. They completely ignore the emotional, the mental readiness of themselves. And that's how they become kind of stuck, right? What is multiple personality, right? Again, mental, emotional, they become stuck within this world because they're not able to. The basic understanding is that you cannot jump over those levels. You cannot try to bypass it. You do need to work with it, okay? You do need to work with your reality. You do need to work with your mind, with your emotion. You need to learn, and this is what we're going to do in the course, we need to learn how to talk to yourself. You need to learn how to talk to your, something we call, Ilona, you're going to be familiar with this, something we call the inner child, right? We just discovered in the butterfly effect course how we have the inner child and we have the inner parent. And we need to learn how to put them together, right? So I do want to go further with you guys from Dr. Hulen. The story goes, give me a second. I'm sharing. Those of you on Instagram, you can just remember this video will be on open access on my YouTube channel if you need to see. But basically what I'm sharing is a picture of Dr. Hulen, the picture of Morna, and now we're going to the next important person within the knowledge of Ho'oponopono becoming accessible to the world is Dr. Joe Vitale, right? So let's continue. Actually, before we get to Joe Vitale, I want to tell you more about Dr. Hulen. So Dr. Hulen learned this practice from Morna. And furthermore, Morna even chooses him. He becomes her personal student. She personally trains him. She gives him a lot of knowledge. She personally teaches him how to start accessing this knowledge, how to use it to the full extent. And it's, now we can get further, right? Now we can go further to Dr. Joe Vitale, right? Dr. Joe Vitale, he's quite famous, right? He's the author, he was a part of The Secret. He was, he's the author of The Law of Attraction. He brought a lot of amazing integrative practices into the world. He brought a lot of financially based, also psychology of money understanding. I remember I actually bought a lot of his courses. I remember listening, right? Before now I do more practical. But before that, I listened to a lot of, psychology, understanding how and why the way money comes into a person's life, how does it work, right? He's amazing in that sense. He has many, many bestseller books, right? So he hears a story, right? He likes interesting stories. And one day his friend calls him and he tells him, hey, Joe, I heard this interesting story. There is a psychiatric ward in Hawaii. There was, right? And it consisted of high emotional disturbed criminals. I mean, we're talking about the worst case, like murderers, rapists, and they're so emotionally disturbed, they're not in jail. But then in the psychiatric ward, which is like a combination of psychiatric ward and jail, okay, the way people, the way doctors would work there, they would sit with their back to the wall, make sure, and the chairs were like, affixed to the floor, right? They were like nailed down. So it's a very serious institution, right? And there is a constant turnaround of personnel, and there's a very heavy atmosphere, as you can understand, right? So at one point they were short on psychiatrists, right? And they kept looking and looking for one. And they came upon, and Dr. Hulen came for an interview, right? And he tells them, right, he has an interview, and he's telling them that when I, okay, I'm just reading your notes, right? Your messages, Rain. The 4 phrases is, thank you, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Please forgive me. We're gonna get to the phrases more in details today, okay? And Dr. Hulen comes for an interview, and what does he do? He gives them a quiz, right? He says, this is how I will work within your institution. I will treat the patients without actually seeing them, right? So they're looking at him, they're looking at each other, and they're like, okay, thank you, don't call us, we'll call you, kind of thing. Like, what kind of special, that's not how psychiatry works. You actually have to see patients, you have to deal with them, right? And at a certain point, they became short anyway, and they're like, okay, let's try this, this crazy psychiatrist, however unconventional he is, let's try, because we have nobody and they needed somebody, right? So he comes in, he takes the files of patients, he locks himself in the room, right, in his cabinet, in his office. He takes the files of patients, and he says he's treating them, right? And what do you know, within certain time, the atmosphere became better. There's some kind of, the suspense, this something, as you can fully understand within the psychiatric ward, the atmosphere started changing, the aura, people started becoming happier, personnel started becoming happier, not so much turnaround, patients started kind of improving, and then at a certain time, fully healing. And then they completely closed the psychiatric ward because there were no patients, right? So Dr. Joe Vitale tells him the story, and Joe's thinking, interesting, right? And his friend telling him, Joe, you like stories like this, very mystical, very interesting. Why don't you figure this out? Maybe you can write a story or a book about it, another bestseller, right? And then kind of a year passes by, and then he sees his friend again, and his friend says, so did you end up researching the story? He's like, what are you talking about? He said, the story about the psychiatric ward. He said, what are you talking about? I said, that was like an urban myth. That doesn't exist. That's not true. And his friend is like, no, research it. This is an actual true story. So Dr. Joe Vitale himself, right? He started researching. He found the psychiatric ward that was closed up. He finds his doctor, Dr. Hulan, right? He calls him. He leaves him a message, right? He says, like, I want to interview you. I want to write a book. He tells his name and everything. So they have a conversation. And the very first question that that Joe Vitale asked Dr. Hulan was, how did you heal all these people if you never saw them, right? I mean, most of us here, we know of different practices, and, we can more or less start, right, to realistically maybe believe the story that people were healed. But the main idea remains, how did you heal these people if you never told them? And Dr. Hulen answered by one of the main postulates of this method, one of the main idea that, I'm bringing to you, and you guys, okay, excellent, girls. Great. And Dr. Hulen said that, you guys probably heard this before, but I'm going to say something. It's very simple, but very basic and fundamental. The world outside us is the reflection of the world within us, right? That's what he said. 1 second. Oh, wait, no. Okay. And everything outside of us within our environment is a reflection of various parts of who we are on the inside. Okay, if you remember, this is how I started our lecture, that when we are born, right, we are born with a pure slate, right? We're completely pure on all levels, on all four worlds, by the way. We are completely clean, completely pure, empty, right? And then as we start getting messages, you know, sensoric understanding of how the world around us works, we start having various karmic associations that come up as a reaction to the outside stimuli from the environment, right? And we start experiencing something we call the thought, right? We start having some mind, something, we process this stimuli from the outside, right? Through our mind by having a thought, by forming thoughts and having a thought, and by emotions, right? Our thought mostly gets stored in the memories. And by the way, our emotions get stored within our body, right? For those of you, when I am going to bring, let's say, in October, the financial generation, the whole program on the financial, you know, kind of, like regeneration, I would think the right word would be. One of the main ideas we're going to do in our course is Bodynomics. Bodynomics is working through the body, because our body, our muscles, body parts actually store within our body parts and our muscles. We have our emotions. Whenever the emotion was not fully processed because it was too hard to process, too heavy, whenever we pass through a situation that was very stressful or traumatic, and our emotions, our reality, the way we view reality, we weren't able to process it fully, what would happen? We kind of stored it. We kind of put it away on a back burner and said, you know, we'll come back to you when I'm ready, when I have enough resources. So as a result, we have a whole chest of storage, right? We have a chest of storage within our consciousness, subconsciousness or unconsciousness, within our mind, that's made up of our memories, of our experiences. And most of the time what stays in there is stressful experience from some stressful or traumatic situations. And our emotions get stored within our body, right? Whenever we have, those of you who know in Neurographica, when we do all those awareness process, when we talk about what is the body part that comes up, right? A body awareness, physical sensation, whatever comes up is where a certain emotional association is kind of stored in, okay? It's a completely like different field. And we're not going to get into it here, but just kind of wanted to kind of notice that our memories, right? Like I mentioned, especially if they're associated with something highly emotional, so highly stressful or traumatic, what happens is that if we're not able to deal with it, if we don't have enough resources, something we call resources, right? We don't have enough strength, emotional or mental, to deal with it. And, or let's say we don't get enough support from the outside world to deal with it. What happens is that we tend to suppress them, right? Something that Jung calls, you know, we put them away into something that Jung called, the part of us is called the shadow, right? Those of you who ever heard the shadows work, it's actually something I'm learning now, also hoping to develop an amazing course based on that, again, integrating with Neurographica. So it's interesting to note, right, that I want to bring you this to you. At one of, when I watched the lecture, right, 1 second. When I watched the videos, the lectures, you know, the learning. So while Dr. Lana is explaining all of it, that what happens is when we see something, some stimuli from the environment, from the outside world that comes to us, right? What is it all about? It's about a reaction, right? If a person or something, some action or a certain person does something that bothers us, it's really a reflection of who we are on the inside, right? Who we are on something that happened within our past that we block so much, we repress so much, that it needs to still come out, right? It needs, in order for our soul to fully finish, you know, the journey, in the world, right? We need to kind of go through all the karmic situations, circumstances, and work through them, right? So the situation keep coming up to give us kind of opportunity. They come as a challenge, give us opportunity to work through them, so we can like kind of continue going to the next challenge in life, and constantly grow. So while Dr. Hulen is explaining it, one of the attendants got up and she asked, she said, I want to ask you something. I have a child who's autistic. So my question to you, based on what you're saying, are you saying I specifically, purposefully attracted this situation to me, where I kind of attracted the fact that I gave birth to a child who's autistic? Like, she was kind of confused, right? Like it didn't resonate. I would even say the opposite. It resonated too much within her, right? She had her own emotional association with it, right? And Dr. Hulen started explaining that actually, look, he said, there's a part of you that is repressed and blocked so much, right, that it's fully submerged within your unconscious. It's very deep, deep, deep within it. So that if you would even try, if one would even, try to have that thought and emotion within close proximity of their consciousness, one would die due to the intensity of the pain. That the psyche would not be able to handle it so much that the person would like instantly, not be able to live in the physical world, right? Because we all have limitations on the mental level, on the emotional, on the physical level, right? Can take a certain pain, right? We all know that. And he said that this karmic circumstance, this repression, right, this something within your past really needs to reprise itself in order to fully transform. And since we're not able to handle this reprising on a conscious psychological level, right, openly, right, we get this situation reprised as an outside of our body experience, right? So he said that the main idea of coming of our soul to this world is to rectify the karmic circumstances, is to reach this highest goal of our soul, right? Our soul comes to work through the challenges to clear completely the karmic baggages, right? The karmic situation, the karmic circumstances. And he says, yeah, so sometimes we get to work with even the hardest and most complicated karmic situations, but that happens to happen outside of our body experience, right? So we tend to meet certain people, or in this case, right, like we all know when we meet certain friends, acquaintances, family members we have, they're really, people within our karmic lifetime that we need to kind of deal with, we need to work out with, we need to go through the challenge of dealing with them, right? Like I teach my children that you're siblings because you need to learn how to deal with each other, right? And it's true. And he explained to this woman, so through this child, a person would be working through a certain karmic situation where the pain is so blocked that one would have to work through the child as a reference to blocking a certain part of themselves, a certain subpart, something that Jung called the persona, a subpart of oneself, right? We know that with autism, right? My experience is actually, I have firsthand experience. Within my background, for those of you who don't know, is special education. For more than 20 years, I did special education. When I actually started doing special education, the beginning of my work experience was working with autistic children. So I kind of know, I studied a lot about them. So individuals with autism, they have a tendency where they kind of isolate themselves from the outside world, the outside environment, so that they become fully immersed only within themselves, right? And that's what Dr. Hulen referred to. He said, look, within you, there is a part of you that wants to do this, that has this certain pain, this repression, that kind of wants to lock herself up within her own world and not come out, not deal with the world, not deal with what it has to offer you, not deal with the challenges, but just be with yourself because, you don't have enough resources, you can't deal with it, right? That persona, you block it because it's not a socially acceptable, right? We know that it's not a socially acceptable situation, right? If somebody does that, people would think, people would have to go, maybe put in a psychiatric ward, deal with it, refer to psychiatrists or something. It's not societally acceptable. And as a result, the person kind of blocks it. And he says, but you need to deal with it. So it does come to you in the form of a child. where you're dealing with a child who's like that. And this way you are dealing with the situation, you're dealing with this challenge. So that was his answer, right? That's one way of understanding how we have certain blocks, certain inhibitions that we repressed throughout our childhood, which is, by the way, the reason why we don't remember our childhood. It becomes so heavy for us. It becomes so heavy for our psyche, for psychological and mental and emotional understanding, that we kind of bury it. We lock it up in our chest, right? But it's there. It's in the shadow, and it tends to emerge, okay? It tends to come out whether we want it or not. So it's interesting to know that as we are constantly bombarded by the reality that gives us constantly new stimuli to process, with daily living, we usually have no chance to think about it, right? We start coming into the situation, we just deal with situation. We're always reacting. We don't deal with our existence. We don't start thinking what's happening. What is happening with me, what the root is, why did this person, let's say, took my parking spot, I'm looking for a parking, I'm waiting for this parking spot, like those from New York City, you know what I'm talking about, right? And this person comes in and gets in, right? And you react to that, you get very emotional, you get like very upset, right? Or angry, right? And you don't get a chance to actually sit down and think, I wonder what is this could be. When I had this lecture in Russian, right? So one of the participants asked me, like, how are you supposed to react when somebody does this to you? And I said, the true reaction would be actually, being able to start understanding that, oh, Ilona, I see your question, I'm going to answer it. Start understanding that, that the true reaction is start understanding that maybe look at things in a karmic way, understanding that maybe in some previous life, my carriage kind of overthrown this person's carriage, right? Or I went through, passed by him, something that has to do also with the moving vehicle, something that involves similar circumstances, right? Similar environment, right? Where somebody's moving. And maybe this is a way of kind of karmic balance. So that's interesting to weigh a different and unusual way of looking at things, right? Ilona, your answer, is this happening with grief as well? Yeah, well, it's much more than that. It's a way a person looks at things, it's a way a person processes things, but I guess this would be grief. I would need to know more, like, what do you mean by grief? Passing of a loved ones, if you're saying. It's, I guess, part of understanding, again, going beyond the scope of this course. If you want to, we can talk personally, but it's understanding more that this person made a choice. Grief, you mean in that sense, the suppression you explained about autistic child. Okay. But what do you mean then by grief when you're saying grief with autistic child? You mean like when a person gets like upset about, not always being able to handle that kind of child? So yeah, that's what it is. A person needs to get in touch with that part, with that kind of sub part of oneself, where we tend to, where we tend to start understanding that there is a part of me that wants to be isolated, right? Again, the autistic children is all about isolation. It's about the fact that they don't want to deal with the outside world. They want to live within their own world, within their own certain habits, right? They only eat certain things, they behave a certain way. They have a hard time dealing with, maybe societally accepted norms, right? And that's the part, a person needs to figure out what is their own views on that. How do they deal with that? I do want to bring you further as we're going. Okay. So I want to bring you back again to the idea. I can relate to the desire to hide, isolate. Yeah, absolutely. I myself am an introvert, so I have a tendency to, my ideal world would be actually sit down, maybe read, learn something. And I make a conscious choice. I work hard on myself to actually learn how to bring it to the people. Like I tell you guys, I shared a lot of the time that it took me about 2 years of 1 year of really wanting highly and, asking the universe, asking God for resources to be able to come out and do live open sessions every day. It's not easy for me, but I personally enjoy doing it, right? It's actually getting to the point of doing it, but I do have resources within me, right? I know I enjoy speaking. People told me that I do have a knack for speaking. I do have the ability of being able to, to bring ideas to the world in a possible, accessible way, So I do have some speech abilities that are hidden resources within me, but it does take time for me to be able to access that. So let's go back. We're actually going to deal with that. Thank you, Lana. I do appreciate your personal involvement in it. I do want to tell you. I want to bring you back to the idea. Remember how we mentioned that the word ho'oponopono is the second part, pono means to reach completion, to reach wholeness, to reach perfection, right? And some of you, those are you who are earthy types, you're going to look at me and say, perfection? Is it even possible? Is it even realistic? Is it not some kind of a utopia? Okay. I was just telling my daughter who's in 4th grade, I started telling her about The Giver, the book The Giver. Those of you who don't know, it's a book about this utopian society, right? Which becomes, the boy grows up in a utopian society and he finds out it's a sham. It's an amazing, amazing book, guys. Whoever didn't read it, and if you read it, just go ahead and reread it. You will have one of the most amazing introspective time of your life, So let's get to the bottom of it. Is it possible? Is it realistic for us to actually have a productive life where we work through our mental and emotional kind of baggage, this, constant chaos within our world, within our mind? Let's do this. Let's discuss something that Freud referred to as ego. Okay, what is ego? Ego is a realistic part of who we are. Okay, those of you guys, time-wise, I am planning to finish by 12 o'clock, okay? It's a 2-hour session, so every open session will be 2 hours. Just those of you who need a break, just take it on your own and come back. Whatever you miss, you can watch a recording, remember the time. So what is ego? Ego is a realistic part of who we are. Ego is historically, right, for many, many years. What is ego? Ego is something, a part of us, that was kicked by religion, by culture, by society, by science, by psychology, right? Social science, the sociology. We were told that ego is bad. We were told we should not follow it. We were told we need to repress it. We need to shun it. We need to get rid of it, right? Yet ego is an integral part of who we are, right? Nowadays, the trend is, thank God, is not to shun or repress ego, but rather to learn how to talk to it, rather learn how to bring it, how to allow it to enter our life, bring it out of the shadow part, right? And it's interesting to know that the job of ego is to protect us, is to protect our sanity. This is very important to understand, right? Because, yes, Michelle, the book is called The Giver. I want to tell you, it's a 5th grade level book. The ideas within it, I remember learning it, reading it as part of my teacher training, and I just immediately bought the book and it was a part of my library. All my kids have a copy of it. My older kids who don't live at home, they have a copy of it because it's something you should always read. It has a very underlying important message that any person should always kind of get in touch with, right? And going back to ego, right? So our ego, make sure that once our psyche reaches a level of comfort, right? It means within our physical, materialistic world, the ego's job is to keep us safe and sound, okay? So it will tell you, why are you bothering going outside? Why are you bothering, learning something new, drawing Neurographica, learning, growing something, learning some new integrative practices will take you to a new world. Why are you doing this? Stay home, relax, sit on the couch, maybe watch TV. It's kind of easy, you don't need much, it has easy to process information. Your mind doesn't get overworked. Just kind of, relax. Don't try to get yourself out of your comfort zone all the time. That's what ego is telling us, right? It's kind of trying to always talking us out of increasing our level of awareness. changing our status quo, so to say, right? Ego is keen on keeping us safe and protected, since the logical inference from ego is that if you change your circumstances, it might not be so good. It may not be soft. It may not be comfortable. And then you may suffer, right? Don't look for a new job. What if your new boss won't be nice? Or maybe it will be even worse than what you have now, right? What if the new job will be hard or harder than what you have now? Or maybe on the way to the job, something might hit you, right? Some unsubstantial fears, right? That's something people have, right? This ego, it's important to understand, it doesn't want to hurt us. It's not mean to us. It's quite the opposite. It wants to protect us, right? It's like it creates walls. It's installing this insulating, right? Insulating us, insulating protection, and creating protection for us, right? Every time we want to do something that would increase our consciousness, our ego is telling us, relax, don't do it, right? Like the famous song goes, right? Yes, it's Give Her the Book. I'm answering somebody on Instagram. Absolutely, yes. Right. And it's telling us, don't do it. You don't know what might happen for this new thing in your life. It might actually harm you. And if we think about it, I mean, let's be realistic here. He may be right, that ego of ours, right? Every time we learn something new, every time we start a new practice, right, a new transformational method, what happens? It starts reaching the layers of our karmic consciousness, and it may bring up past memories, associations with pain, and that would bother our soul. We may cry inside ourselves, right? And ego's job is to protect our soul. And that's the job, is to stay static and not to grow. So our goal here is to create a safe space within ourselves, which we can uncover, within which we can uncover some old karmic baggages. And I do want to note that that goes without necessarily uncovering any trauma or stress, right? That's very important to understand. That is not what's happening here, right? And yet we give enough harmony, within ourselves, within that safe space that we create. We will give harmony, right? That's why we're going to utilize the method of Neurographica, which is the best way to harmonize things, right? We know this. And we're going to round out each and every step, okay? Each and every step. Neurographic is a perfect method to be using this whole Ho'oponopono as we harmonize each step, each phrase we say. Each time we'll uncover some new karmic baggage, new karmic association. We need to harmonize it. We need to bring out, remember what happens during Neurographica. We bring harmony, we'll bring it out, we give harmony, harmonize it, then get to know this inner child, right? Become familiar, start to show that you love the inner child. And then what do? We give universal lines and we give the fixing, right? We start projecting, we start bringing out the resources that would help us deal with what's happening around us, right? Ego's job is to tell you at each step of the accomplishment, whatever you accomplish something, right? What does it tell you? Enough, stop. Hey, you, rest, stay here. You have done enough. You have accomplished enough. Stop going further. What are you doing? Relax, And it starts giving you, I like this analogy. Ego is being this overprotective parent. How you have this overprotective, if I may say myself, right? Like a lot of my colleagues, my friends tell me, are you the typical Jewish mother, right? This kind of overprotective kind of mother, right? Whose job is to so insulate the child that the child is not able to function on his or her own, right? And we need to learn to talk to our ego. We need to get to the point where we have a conversation with our ego. And I want to tell you, once you get to that point, your ego is going to ask you a series of meaningful questions. Your ego, by the way, those of you who want to learn about Neurographica, this is what Neurographica does. Neurographica is becoming a self-coach, right? This is what you learn. You learn how to have a conversation with your ego, and your ego is going to be your coach. It's going to ask you a lot of meaningful questions. Are you sure you want to do this? Do you really want to do it? Is it something you want, or it's something that the egregor, the culture, your parents have told you need to become a doctor or a lawyer, or it's something like maybe you're within a certain group of people who think this is the values, does this stay within your values? There's something new you want to do. Do you really want to grow and transform yourself? This is the best way to have a conversation. I remember leading a group, and it was actually a Ho'oponopono group, right? And we worked through the Ho'oponopono method, and I would talk a lot about having a conversation with yourself and listening to your thoughts and ideas. And one of the participants said, This is the hardest part. The hardest part is to have a conversation. It's so hard to have a conversation with yourself. It's so hard to hear what you have to say to yourself. And that's what it's all about. Our job, again, is to create that safe space within which we can talk to each other, within which we can have a conversation. We can deal with our ego. We can understand that our ego is our partner in life, right? Again, we usually, most references, it's referred to as the inner child. Those of you who are in the butterfly effect group, remember, we uncovered that there is another archetype within us. It's called the inner parent, right? And our work is to create an area, to create this adult who will learn how to bring your inner child and your inner parent together and have a conversation, have a harmony within, okay? I read an interesting allegory to the way we deal with challenges in life, right? It's a Kabbalistic explanation. It says that whenever we deal with challenges, right, the way we deal with it is that you get a piece of cake in front of you, right? So it looks so attractive, right? I write all this amazing stuff, right? Everybody gets excited, right? I keep saying, come to this new session, right? Those of you or my students, you guys understand what I'm talking about, right? I keep writing and bombarding you with how exciting this new program is and how great it is and what great new growth you're going to get as a part of it, right? And you guys get attracted, right? And you start coming and you start, going forward to this amazing, delicious looking piece of cake. And what we don't know is that we have something behind us. We start walking forward, but at a certain point we get resistance, right? We become scared or we become overwhelmed, and we want to step back. What we have behind us, we have fire, right? Our universe puts a fire behind us. So it's a two-way. It's interesting to know that when we start facing with challenge, it's inevitable that at one point we want to go backward. But when we go backward, we kind of get burned, right? We know this. When we get resistance, we start coming up with this. Gigi, I'm sending you love, honey. I hope you're okay. We start like feeling, it's getting hot in there, right? And interesting to know that the idea of fire in many religions, right? Like in Christianity, fire is that hot space you're not supposed to go into, right? Like I said, this was like a Kabbalistic explanation, and that's what it is. So we don't fully go backwards, guys. This is important to understand. You can kind of step backwards, but that will be that fire that will either can give you actually support, right? It can keep you warm and say, I support you, go forward. I'm here holding your back, right? We do this kind of work when we work with family system, right? When we work with ancestry, right? When we bring our ancestry, we're going to do this in the financial program. We're going to deal with talk with that ancestry and ask them for resources and support. And then we continue going forward. It's important to remember you do go forward and take that cake. You do taste the cake, okay? There will be rewards. So again, our job in life, this is what we're going to learn in this course, is to have a dialogue with our ego, to discuss what should we do, why are we doing it, what's the best way to do it. That famous book, I didn't read it, but it's on my list, Conversation with God. This is what it is, right? This is that kind of dialogue, a conversation with God, conversation with our soul. Okay. And it's important to note, this is very important. Our ego actually does a great job to keep us safe from jumping too much into any transformational practice. Okay, it's not safe. This is what we discussed in the beginning, right? When we discuss how a person wants to constantly jump from the physical level into the totally spiritual, going straight to the top, straight to the realization, right? I want to open a business and right away I want to be a millionaire. I want to solve, world hunger, and I want to buy an island, right? I want to be extremely rich, right? It doesn't happen. There are steps. You need to work through each step, right? Our ego actually works on making sure we don't take too much, right? So we cannot say, some people have that, right? When you start doing integrative spiritual practices, people say, yes, I'm open, bring it on. And they have to be very careful, right? Those of you who are in Neurographica, right? We're advanced, you know, when you start in Neurographica, you become very open. And then at a certain moment, you start becoming more realistic because kind of reality catches up with you. You start understanding that there is something called resistance, certain things doesn't work out the way we want to. We start kind of coming down, right? The gravity pulls it down to the physical level. That's important to remember. We're constantly going up and down. We need to learn to go through this passage, not jumping up and down, okay? And we need to learn how not to, when we expand ourselves, right? There's a Kabbalistic term called the vessel breaking. What does it refer to? You know, when somebody hits the glass, they want to expand its interior and their ability to accept, so that when you pour something in, you will have more space. There's a problem with that. You have to be very careful, because if you overheat it, it will break into many pieces, and then it will be broken entirely, and you won't be able to use it as a vessel at all. So that's why it's important. Our ego does a great job of making sure, keeping us grounded, and that will give us a chance to make sure that we are ready in all aspects: our body, our mind, our emotions, our mind, and our soul. We should, all four aspects should be ready to deal with the new reality, okay? That's important to understand. I want to give you, we have 20 more minutes. Let's go further. I want to continue. I have an interesting information I want to give you, going more specifically, more deeper into what Ho'oponopono is, right? For those of you on Instagram, I'm going to draw the diagram, okay? Oops, wait. Okay. So I want to bring you to this idea, okay? A human cell. Okay, let's go deeper, right, into this program. What is a human cell, right? A human cell, there it is, it's a circle. There you go. A human cell is a circle. This is a cell, okay? We have a conscious thought, right? Our conscious thought is associated with 1 million subconscious or unconscious ideas. And every 15 conscious pieces of information, there are 15 million pieces within our conscious, right? And it's interesting to know that, give me a second, let me see. Oh, I took you to the cell. Wait, we're not ready for the cell yet. I think the cell is going to be probably in the second session, because I think that's when you guys will be more ready. Taking you back to the idea of ego, the idea of the mind, right? Getting ready, bringing the mind ready is very important. So, wait, the opposite, I'm going to be here. Okay. Yeah, let's do something else. Okay. I want to bring you the idea that every time we have a conscious thought, we have an association, about 1 million subconscious or unconscious association, ideas, circumstances come up with every single thought. Okay. So imagine if you have 15 thoughts or 15 pieces, conscious pieces of information, you bring up 15 million pieces within your subconscious. We all know how the law of attraction works. I don't have to tell you this. We have something within our mind, what forms our reality. Our mind is what forms our reality. Those of you who drew the miracle session, right? I know a lot of you talked about the miracle session that I have on the YouTube channel. You guys will be familiar with the story of Columbus and his ship, right? When Columbus sailed to the Americas, right? When he sailed and when he actually came, the Indians, right? The natives, right? The Native Americans who lived on the land, right? They actually were not able to see him, right? The huge, humongous ship is ported, by this port, by this island, right? But they can't see it. Why? Because in their mind, they have no concept, they have no understanding that there is such a possibility for such a huge ship, for such a huge boat, right? Because they're used to having a smaller boat, right? That they use to kind of sail across if they need to. They never built anything so grand and so huge, like one of those, huge expedition ships that they had at the time of Columbus. So when he came to the island, nobody came up to him until he himself actually got down from the ship, he and his people, and he went to the island, and the natives started seeing him Only then they started having an association, an understanding that there is a possibility, you know, that somebody from far away on a much bigger ship, right, that would not be overthrown easily through the storm, will be able to come. They had no idea of like strangers coming to their land. And only then, only after he came down, only after they saw him and they heard his story of sailing and coming, they started seeing the ship. Only after hearing the understanding that there is a huge piece of, you know, the art kind of, we can call it, right? Huge piece of this realistic physical vessel, right, that can carry people from one area of the world to another. Only then, when they came to the bank, you know, they came to the shore, they were able to see the ship, the humongous ship, and they were astonished. Before that, they lacked the concept. What is this about? This is about the fact that our mind can see only something. Our mind forms concepts. And only then, and after it kind of internalizes the concept, only then we start seeing it within our reality. Our world becomes formed according to our vision, according to our understanding of how we want to see the reality. Interesting, remember how we refer to the newborn? Let's go back to the newborn reference. The newborn child cannot see, right? We know that the child is born with a very, they now prove that the child sees something, but the eyesight is so low. They see everything very blurry, right? Interesting to know that it's very metaphysical. There is no formed world within his or her world. Instead of I believe it, if I see it, it is rather I believe and you will see it. Yes, absolutely, Lana. Yeah, that's the premises of that. Yeah, absolutely. Interesting to know that it's very metaphysical. The newborn child, there is no formed physical world within his or her mind. So this is kind of a duality. Those of you who know, I talk a lot about duality, right? There's a duality, right? There is a world that exists, but it doesn't exist, right? And that's where more association comes with the fact that each child, based on the messages they get from their environment, right? They form a world. And it will be according to their personality. It will also be according to their hidden karmic perception, right? Their hidden, their karmic baggage, right? Let's say when my children ask for a second candy, right? I give them candy and then can I get another one? And I say, no, you know, one is enough. There will be different reaction from each one of them, right? And you guys can notice different people will react to the same situation completely differently. One will be determined to get it no matter what, right? One will say, you know, we'll get different way, try different way of asking me to get that candy. Another one of my children will say, okay, I understand, you know, she's more mature. She's like, I understand it's not healthy. I explain. She gets it. She understands. She finds, you know, she easily redirects herself. She finds something else to do. And then there is a third one. She will hold it in her heart as a personal karmic style rejection, okay? And she starts talking about, I never get anything. I always get denied. You always don't give me something. And that's, you know, very karmic. Because, you know, I kind of denied all children, but she's the one who takes it personally. So you can understand how even getting the same message, right, from the outside world, let's say the child is crying, the mother doesn't come right away. Different children will react different to that stimuli. One children will take it personal and say, you know, my mother doesn't want to be with me. One child will say, you know, mommy is probably busy with something, you know, somebody who's a mature, we call it, you know, old soul, right? She's busy. She will come when she gets a chance. You know, she's very, and one will say, huh, too bad. I'm going to scream and cry until I get a reaction from this person, from this mother figure, right? And that's how it works. So that's important to understand that each child forms their own world that is associated with their vision, with their perception. And it's important to understand that that's how the law of attraction works, right? By remembering a certain association in the past, we start to attract a certain reaction for the future as well, right? I like to bring this example, right? I have a friend, you know, she's single and she wants to always meet somebody. And she constantly tells stories how somebody always offers her to go on a blind date. And she has an aversion to it, right? Every time anybody offers it to her, she starts remembering and saying, no, I don't go on blind dates. They're horrible. I have a horrible experience with them. And she starts remembering all the horrible experiences with them. And what do you think most likely is going to happen again? yes, most likely it's going to happen again. She's going to have an unsuccessful experience with another yet blind date or even a regular date, right? Because and it's interesting to know when it comes to dating, you really need to be successful just once, we say, right? Once you meet that significant someone, you say that's it. It's really like once the percentage doesn't have to be high, right? Specifically in this case, right? But this person is so wrapped up in their personal past memory, they start attracting that they kind of project this memory to happen again and again for the future. Okay. And this is what happened with Dr. Hulen. Going back to the story of the question that Dr. Joe Vitale asked Dr. Hulen, he said, how did you treat these people without ever seeing them? And he said that I would take the file and start reading it. And as he reads the file, the whole medical, you can imagine how thick it is, for those heavy, emotionally disbalanced criminals. He said, I would start reading, like reading about their childhood, what happened, that most of them have a very, broken childhood and happy. He said, I would start reading it and start understanding that what am I getting? What is the reflection? I would start understanding. That's why he needed to be by himself, right? He would start seeing what is the reflection he's getting from this person. Is he feeling bad for this person? Then he says, I understand that there is a sub part of me who is like this person. In some previous life, maybe I acted as this person. It doesn't mean that he killed somebody, but he did something so bad that in his mind, right, in his soul mind and level of the soul, he sees it as so catastrophic as, let's say, maybe killing a person, right? Killing. We know there is a saying, when you say certain words, you kind of kill a person, right? They all mean, they're very meaningful, right? So it's something important, right? By the way, this means we have to be very careful with the way we explain things to children because they really take things literally, right? So he says that whenever, let's say, if he felt shameful that there is such a person exists in his world, then he would understand that, for somebody else, he would actually feel mad that he was a criminal, right? Which each reflection, he said, I would examine and see as part of who I am, part of myself, a persona who at a certain point was repressed and blocked so much within my reality or whatever, previous lifetime it was, but I have to deal with this challenge. I have to clean my karmic baggage from this, this kind of occurrence, from this situation. So he said, within my reality, within my world, it had to come out by this harsh way, right? By this outside of my body person stepping over the law of life, right? This is a kind of a call to me saying, what are you repressing? Are you dealing with that part of you who is mad at somebody, who is shamed or something, who cannot handle life so much that they kind of overstep the law of the country, the law of the universe, right? And it's interesting to know that he says he starts paying attention to his awareness, the way he goes through each world, right? He goes through the awareness on the physical level, how he feels, what the body is sensing, right? The emotion, the mental, what are the thoughts, what are the associations consciously coming up? And of course, he would deal with it in a spiritual way. And the way he would deal with it was through Ho'oponopono process, right? So the 4 phrases, right? You guys asked, and I'm going to say again, the 4 phrases we're saying is, thank you, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, right? It's interesting to know that within Judaism, we actually do this every single year, a month before the start of the new year. You remember, guys, we just had the Rosh Hashanah last week, the beginning of the new karmic year, the beginning of a new spiritual year. The world gets renowned. What is the point of Rosh Hashanah? The point of Rosh Hashanah, the world was created, right? Every year anew, the world is created again and again. We prepare ourselves for this spiritual journey, right? For this spiritual new beginning. And we go through it, right? The month before, we're actually supposed to sit down and think carefully. What happened? What were our actions throughout the year? Do we need to say, I'm sorry to somebody, please forgive me? Do we need to say thank you to somebody? Do we need to say, I love you to somebody, right? These 4 phrases actually cleanse the 2 worlds in the middle, okay? When you say the 4 phrases, you seamlessly, right? You're able, without going into trauma, by the way, consciously. You don't need to consciously go into trauma. Remember, you're not Dr. Hulan, you're not a psychiatrist. You don't need to deal with this, with heavy patients, right? You deal with yourself. You deal with people around you. You deal with challenges, your children, your spouse, your significant other, your friends, maybe somebody you don't like, why do they annoy you? Why you don't like it? And you start saying the phrases, okay? Start saying the phrases and you start, we don't have that much time to draw. I have a 12 o'clock session after this, but those of you who want to practice Neurographica, you can do this, right? You can I'm going to show you, and you can practice. We will start the actual practice. We will start to draw the Neurographica drawing. We will start actually with the first phrase on Wednesday. If you're interested in being a part of this practical group, which will be private for reasons that, people share we're going to do the coaching style. We're going to talk about what's happening. We're going to draw the thank you phrase on Wednesday. But for now, those of you, let me transfer my camera. We have 8 minutes. I'm just going to show you what to do. Most of you here are advanced students. If you're not, again, it's okay. You can just, I kind of have this drawing. It's part of the 10 principles that we did, where we access the 4 worlds. But I want to show you within Ho'oponopono method, what can you do with this algorithm, right? Where we draw the 4 worlds, and then we, oops, 1 second. Let me just transfer my camera so you can see what I'm drawing. Those of you on Instagram, I will actually turn over my camera and you will be able to see it as well. Okay. Install right here. 1 second. You'll be able to see those of you who are familiar with the Neurographica. By the way, those of you who are not familiar, I am inviting you to come and become familiar starting this coming Sunday. Today is Monday. So on Sunday the 19th and Sunday the 26th, 2 sessions. We will have 2 amazing sessions where we teach the basics in Neurographic. You will learn everything there is to know about the way the method works. And guess what happens within the method of Neurographica? We actually actively work on something we call the awareness and reflection process, where we go through, where we note, we learn, and I teach you, and I heavily teach you. Those of you who are my students, you can vouch for that, right? I am very keen on taking you through all, you need to discuss what your physical senses are every time we draw, every time we go through each step of the algorithm. You need to discuss what your emotions are, right? What your thoughts are, right? Your mental world. And then we have a reflection and insight, right? That's the spiritual world, okay? Those of you at home, if you want to draw, this is what we do. Instead of even writing, I wrote this for people who don't know, but what you can write here is start writing the phrases, right? You start going, thank you. On the level of the physical, you say thank you for everything you have around you, the world around you, for everything you have in your life. The first thing we do is we say thank you. And then we go further. Emotions. Emotions is I love you. Okay, on an emotional level, you express your emotion. You say I love you. Say I love you. And by the way, we can discuss this, guys. We have 2 more sessions. I'm going to take you deeper. I'm going to take you very particular, how you learn to do this with a particular person, with a particular maybe object or subject within your life, and how to do it quickly and how to do it slowly. And next week, by the way, I do want to know, next week we are doing, let me give you a synopsis of what we're doing next week. Next week, we're doing the cell. We're going to discuss about how this works on the cellular level for the person doing the Ho'oponopono concept, what it refers to, how it works, what happens when we do the Ho'oponopono, how the cell becomes cleared, becomes pure and regenerates, lives better, more fulfilling, better, healthier, right, on a physical level. We are going to discuss, we're going to do breathing exercises, meditation, Ho'oponopono meditation. I'm going to explain to you zero concept, the concept of the zero. Some of you who read the Ho'oponopono books, you may have heard of it, the concept of the zero, that every time we do Ho'oponopono, we kind of get to the zero level. This refers to the blank that I just started the course with, you know, the newborn state of mind, the newborn state of life, where we are blank. We have, you know, we can recreate anything and everything. We get renewed every time. And then we're going to draw we're going to have a special drawing where we will draw everything I explained to you. Okay. For now, let's continue. I want to tell you a bit more. So over here, you say thank you. On the emotionally level, you say I love you. On the thought level, on the level of analyzing and overanalyzing everything, what is usually happens, usually what comes up is guilt or fear or anything. And over here, we say, I'm sorry. Right? Because over here, the fear comes up. Maybe we're not worthy of whatever it is we're asking for. Okay, you can give a topic, by the way. Remember, those of you, again, advanced students, give a goal. Those of you who are just beginning, who want to know whether you should join the basic course or not, I welcome you to come and watch the live sessions. I have the recording of them on my YouTube channel. We're going to have another one tomorrow. I don't remember what time. Is it 10 or 11? You can look up at the, tomorrow is 11 o'clock. Yeah, I'm going to have the 7 steps, topic 2.0. Maybe here when you say, I'm sorry, right? This is maybe some regret that holding you back, that tells you you don't deserve getting what you want. And over here, you get to the last part, to the spiritual part. Please forgive me, right? This is the way we talk to the divine within us. It's important to remember that there is a divine, it's, again, duality. We have a divine outside of us, something bigger than the universe, and we have a divine within us, okay? We work together with both of them. Important to, again, bring that duality to the fusion, to understand that they're all a part of who we are, okay? And then you can use a neural line, right? You can use a neural line as you say thank you as you go through the physical world. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And I want to bring to you the concept, the idea of going backwards, going from top. And when you go up, right, you're in the spiritual world, you hear, please forgive me. And I'm going to give you a synopsis of what we're going to learn. This will actually be in session 3 already. I'm going to give you a backwards, right? Kind of give you a preview, right? What happens when you ask for forgiveness? Project. Remember the fixing shape projection? Start projecting that you hear the answer. And the divine is telling you over here on this level, I forgive you, right? And then what happens? The divine is our inner parent. Remember? This is our inner child, right? We want something, we ask for something, we're going up to the parent. And the inner parent says, I forgive you. The very first answer you want to hear for please forgive me is, I forgive you. The parent, the divine, always forgives us. Then the divine says something interesting. The divine assures us, right? And it says, I love you. You know, the divine loves us. We hear the love back. We get the love back. That gives us a resourceful feeling. When we hear somebody loves us, it gives us a feeling of happiness, right? Over here on the emotional level, we become happy, right? We have happiness. And over here, when we get happy, what do? Some of you know what's about to come. We, wait 1 second. Yeah, I want to be able to see your comments. We become happy and we want to express our happiness, because that will lead us to the 4th level, where on the physical level, we will get the resources. You, I guess, will get to do this on your own, okay? Bring in some resources. But first, in order to get resources, let's get happy. Let's get laughing, okay? I'm going to turn on a timer, guys. I'm going to give you, to those of you who are new to this, I'm going to let you know, even though it's a minute, it's quite plenty, and it does get challenging to laugh. But I'm inviting all of you to laugh out loud. I'm personally going to, just letting you know, okay? I'm going to turn the camera back so you can see, because it's important to see somebody laughing. Those of you maybe even turn on your cameras on your phone and look at yourself laughing. It's important. But over here, after we do the laughter, right, the laughter therapy, please keep in mind that we are, you know, we need to get resources. Give yourself resources on this level, okay? Draw some shapes. At this point, keep the shapes more circular again, just to give more harmony to yourself. But who is ready for laughing? Welcome to join. We're gonna laugh out loud. We're gonna laugh ourselves silly. We're gonna bring us to the point where we're gonna be so laughing and so happy that you will start getting resources. Important to note, start listening to yourself, start hearing the resources, start jotting down, writing down what are the resources you're getting, okay? You guys see me on Facebook. I'm gonna turn my Instagram back. I wanna join you back, welcome you back to joining me for the laughing therapy. Okay, 1 second. Okay, here we are. Okay, the timer is being on. The first laughter you're gonna do is gonna be a bit forced. Don't worry about it. That's how it works with everybody. Start laughing, start smiling, put a smile on your face, and then you will see how your face, your muscles, you know, it's like getting on the bike again, will start becoming more familiar, become more relaxed when you start laughing, when you start smiling, and then we're going to start the laughing. You get this breathing in, and then you start the laughter. First, again, it's a forced laughter, but then it becomes more natural. After the laughter, take a minute or 2 or 3. And just sit in this aura of this amazing energy, of this laughter infused aura, air around you. And you will get resources. I have to go. I have another group waiting for me, the Labyrinth group. I wanted to wish you a beautiful, resourceful day ahead. I want to wish you that I'm finally cracked. Yeah, there you go, Michelle. That's the point, right? I want to wish you a beautiful day ahead, a beautiful night ahead. May you have lots of resources come to you. I want to note that when we're going to do this in a private practice in Zoom, we're all going to turn our cameras on, get ready for this, and we're going to see an array of laughing faces, and it becomes much more contagious, becomes much more of an energized, you know, this field where we share our energy, and it becomes absolutely, absolutely amazing. Okay. So come join our private group, come draw with us. For those of you with other circumstances, I understand. I'll see you in our open session. For those of you watching the recording, if you have any questions, you write to me, Lana Shalom 7. My email is lanashal76@gmail.com. It should be below the video on YouTube. On Facebook and Insta, guys, PM me. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Loved having I felt your energy in the field, okay, in the universe. I felt your love, your interest, and your receptiveness. And wishing you a beautiful day ahead. Goodbye. See you. Some of you I will see tomorrow, actually.